A mafia boss unzipped her wedding dress. To save her brother, she agreed to marry a monster. But his whispered words hid a dangerous secret. She was the perfect pawn in a deadly game of revenge. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The wedding dress felt like a costume. Isla stood in the center of a huge, cold bedroom, her fingers tracing the heavy lace on her sleeves. It was the most expensive thing she had ever worn, and it itched. She had married Don Mateo 3 hours ago, in a church full of silent, watching men in sharp suits. There had been no family on her side, just her in this white dress and him in a black tuxedo that looked like it was cut from shadow. His eyes, a dark, unforgiving brown, had stayed on her the whole time, not with love, with a quiet, intense study. It was a business deal, one signed paper for another. Her freedom for 1 year as his wife in name only, in exchange for her brother David's freedom from prison. Mateo had the judges in his pocket. David would be out in a week. Isla just had to pretend for 12 months to be the doting wife of the most feared man in the city. She could do that. She had to. The door to the bedroom opened. Mateo walked in. He had taken off his jacket and tie. He looked bigger somehow, more real in just his white shirt. The door clicked shut. The sound was very loud. Isla's heart jumped into her throat. The contract said in name only. But they were alone now. He owned her now. What did rules mean to a man like him? He didn't speak. He just walked toward her, his steps quiet on the thick rug. She held her breath. He stopped behind her. She could feel the heat of him. She stared straight ahead at the dark window, seeing her own pale, scared reflection. Then she felt his fingers at the back of her neck. They were warm. They found the top of the hidden zipper, buried under the lace. The sound was the only thing in the room. Zip. He leaned close. His lips almost brushed her ear. His voice was a low whisper, rough like stones underwater. It wasn't full of triumph. It was full of something else, something like pain. "You're finally mine, little dove." The name shocked her. Little dove, it was too tender, too familiar. It didn't fit their deal. A cold fear, different from before, trickled down her spine. He didn't touch her further. He simply stepped back, the zipper open to the middle of her back. "Get some sleep," he said, his voice normal now, flat. "You'll need your strength. We have a party tomorrow night. Everyone will be watching." He turned and walked into a connected room, closing the door behind him. Isla stood there, shaking, the wedding dress hanging open. She was not a wife. She was not a lover. Little dove! She felt like a puzzle piece shoved into the wrong space. The next week was a strange pretend life. David was released just as Mateo promised. Isla spoke to him on a secure phone, her voice bright with forced cheer. "It's okay, David. He's kind. It's a good deal." She hated lying. Mateo was never unkind. He was distant. He gave her clothes, a credit card, guards named Paul and James who followed her everywhere. He ate dinner with her each night in a huge, quiet dining room. He asked her polite questions about her flower shop, which was still running without her. He listened with that same intense focus, but his eyes often seemed to look through her, at something else. The party was at their home, a mansion all gray stone and sharp edges. Isla wore a red dress chosen by a stylist. "The Dawn's color," the woman had said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Downstairs, the house was full of people. Powerful, dangerous people. Men with hard faces and beautiful, sharp-eyed women. The air smelled like expensive perfume and fear. Mateo took her hand. His grip was firm. "Stay close to me," he murmured, "and smile." He led her through the crowd. People greeted him with respect, calling him Don Mateo. They looked at Isla with quick, curious glances that turned into something else. A flicker of surprise, then recognition, then shock quickly hidden. An older man with silver hair and a kind face stopped them. "Mateo," he said, his voice warm. He looked at Isla and his smile froze. For a second, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. "And this must be your new bride." His eyes were shiny. "Stunning, simply stunning." "Thank you, Uncle Leo," Mateo said, his hand tightening on Isla's. Later, a beautiful woman with cold eyes named Alina handed Isla a glass of champagne. "A toast to the new Mrs. Rossi," she said, her voice sweet as poison. Or should I say, the second Mrs. Rossi, you must feel so lucky to fill such big shoes. Isla felt a chill. She just smiled as Mateo had told her to, but the pieces were starting to click together. The strange looks. The whispered name, Little Dove. Mateo's first wife had died. No one had told her how. That night after the party, Isla couldn't sleep. She wandered into the big, dark library. A single lamp was on. She looked at the books. Then she saw it. A small, framed photo on a high shelf, turned slightly away as if to hide it. She took it down. It was a picture of Mateo, younger, smiling a real smile she had never seen. He had his arm around a woman. The woman was laughing, her head thrown back. She had long, wavy blonde hair like Isla's. She had Isla's same nose, her same smile. She looked almost exactly like her. Isla's blood went cold. She wasn't just a random florist. She was a lookalike. The door to the library opened. Mateo stood there. He saw the photo in her hand. His face went still. "Who is she?" Isla asked, her voice trembling. Mateo walked in slowly and closed the door. He looked tired. "Her name was Stella," he said, the name soft in his mouth. "My wife. She was killed 2 years ago, a car bomb. It was meant for me." Isla stared at the photo. "And I look like her." "Yes." "So I'm not just a prop to stop your enemies from thinking you're weak," Isla said, the truth dawning. "You brought me here because I look like her. Why?" Mateo took the photo from her, his thumb stroking the glass over Stella's face. "The bomb wasn't from a rival family, Isla. It was an inside job. Someone in my own organization, my own family, someone I trust. They have been very careful. I cannot find them." He looked at her, his eyes blazing in the dim light. "But they loved Stella, or feared her, or were obsessed with her. When they see you, when they see her face alive again, walking by my side, it will shake them. It will make them nervous. They will make a mistake, and I will be watching." Isla felt the room spin. She wasn't a wife. She wasn't a prop. She was bait. Live bait dangled in a tank of sharks. "You're using me as a target," she whispered, horror rising in her chest. "I am using you as a key," he corrected, his voice hard. "And I am protecting you every second. The guards, Paul and James, they are my best men. They are not just for show. You are the safest person in this city because you are the most important piece on the board. My brother is safe because you are doing this, and he will stay safe as long as you play your part. The part of my beloved new wife, the part of Stella come back to life." He stepped closer. "You must act like her. Not exactly, but enough. She was not afraid. She was bold. She called me Mateo, never Don. She touched my arm in public. She laughed loudly. Can you do that?" Isla thought of David, finally free. She thought of the man in front of her, whose eyes held an ocean of grief and fury. She was already in the trap. Her only way out was through. "Yes," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. The game changed after that. Isla started to study. Mateo gave her more photos, videos. She learned how Stella walked, how she held her head high. She started to copy it. At the next social event, she called him Mateo in front of his men. She saw the shock ripple through them. She put her hand on his arm. He looked down at her, and for a moment the look in his eyes wasn't pretend. It was stunned and raw and painful. Living with him, pretending with him, created a strange closeness. She saw the weight he carried. She saw how he cared for his men, for the families who worked for him. He was a brutal man, but he had a code. One night he came home late, his knuckles bloody. He didn't hide it. He just washed his hands at the kitchen sink, his shoulders slumped with a deep tiredness. "Are you okay?" Isla asked from the doorway, wrapped in a robe. He looked at her reflection in the dark window. "No," he said simply, "but I will be." He started to talk to her at night in the dark, through the door that connected their rooms. He told her about Stella, how she loved art, how she was brave and funny. He told her about the day she died. Isla listened. She started to tell him about her life before, about her flower shop, about David. The wall between them began to feel less like a wall and more like a curtain. One afternoon, Uncle Leo came for lunch. He was kind, fatherly. He talked to Isla about art, making her laugh. When he left, he hugged her. "It is so good to have life in this house again," he whispered. and she felt a tear hit her hair. Later, Mateo was in a dark mood. "Be careful of Leo," he said, staring out the window. "But he's your uncle. He loved Stella." "Everyone loved Stella," Mateo said, his voice like ice. "That is the problem." The plan was working. Isla could feel it. The organization was getting tense. Whispers grew. Then the first direct move happened. Isla went to visit her old flower shop with Paul and James. It felt normal, wonderful. On her way back to the car, a van screeched to a halt nearby. Two men jumped out. They had guns. They didn't point them at Paul and James. They pointed them right at Isla. "The boss wants to talk to you, Stella," one of them sneered. "He says you've been gone too long." Stella, they thought she was Stella. Before they could grab her, shots rang out, not from Paul or James, but from the rooftop across the street. The two men fell. Mateo stepped out from a nearby doorway, a gun smoking in his hand. He hadn't been following her. He had been leading the trap. He walked to her, his face like stone. He didn't hug her. He just looked her over, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, trembling. "Good." He looked at the bodies. "They were from the Luciano family, rivals, but they called you Stella. Someone told them. Someone inside told them where you would be and what you look like." He looked at her, a storm in his eyes. "The snake is in my house, and it is starting to strike." That night the fear was real. Isla sat in her room, shaking. Mateo came in. He didn't stay by the door. He sat on the edge of her bed. He took her hand. His hand was warm, rough. "I am sorry," he said, the words heavy. "I did not think they would move so brazenly. I will not let them touch you." "You can't promise that," she whispered. "I can," he said, and he meant it. "Because I am not just protecting my bait anymore, Isla. I am protecting you." He stayed until she fell asleep. When she woke up, his suit jacket was draped over a chair. He had slept in the armchair by her window, a gun on his lap, watching over her. The line was gone. The pretend feelings were not pretend anymore. When they went out now, her hand in his felt real. When she laughed, it was Stella's laugh, it was her own, and he would look at her with a new light in his eyes. A light that was for her, not for a memory. At a big meeting with all his captains, Isla played her part perfectly. She served drinks like Stella used to. She smiled at the men. She saw their faces, respect, nostalgia, fear. One man, a captain named Marco, could not stop staring at her. His gaze was hot, possessive, creepy. When she passed him, he grabbed her wrist too tight. "Stella always knew I liked my whiskey neat," he said, his breath smelling of alcohol. Before Isla could react, Mateo was there. He moved like lightning. He didn't shout. He just placed his hand over Marco's and squeezed. Marco's face went white with pain, and he let go instantly. "Apologize to my wife," Mateo said, his voice quiet and deadly. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Rossi," Marco muttered, his eyes down. Later, Mateo was furious. "Marco was obsessed with Stella," he told Isla. "He was a suspect, but I had no proof. He has been quiet since she died, until now." The final piece came from Alina, the cold woman from the first party. She asked Isla to meet for coffee, woman to woman. Against Paul's advice, Isla went. She knew it was a move in the game. At the cafe, Alina smiled. "You are doing very well. You look just like her. You even act like her. But you are not her, are you? You are just a little florist." Isla kept Stella's confident smile. "I am Mateo's wife. That is all that matters." Alina leaned forward. "Let me give you some advice, little dove." The pet name hit Isla like a slap. "Some ghosts should stay dead. Mateo is using you. When he finds what he's looking for, you will be discarded. You should leave, now, for your own good." Isla went cold. "Little dove!" Only Mateo had called her that on their wedding night, in a whisper in a private room. How did Alina know? She stood up. "Thank you for the coffee, Alina." She went straight to Mateo's office. She told him everything. About Marco's grab, about Alina's warning, about the pet name. Mateo's face became very, very still. It was the calm before the hurricane. "Alina was Stella's best friend," he said softly. "She was like a sister, and Leo is her father." The whole picture crashed into place. Uncle Leo, the kind one. Alina, the best friend. They had loved Stella, maybe too much. Maybe in a way that turned to poison when she chose Matteo. Or maybe they just wanted Matteo's power for themselves. The bomb had taken Stella from both Matteo and from them. Seeing her return had driven them mad, made them reckless. "It's time," Matteo said. He made a plan, a final party, a trap within a trap. The party was for their 2-month anniversary. Everyone was there. Leo, beaming, giving a toast. Elena, watching with sharp eyes. Marco, drinking heavily. Isla wore a black dress, one of Stella's favorites, found in the back of a closet. She saw the impact it had. Leo's eyes filled with tears. Elena's smile became a grimace. Marco looked haunted. Midway through the night, Matteo made a show of getting an angry phone call. He stormed out, saying he had to deal with a problem at the docks. He left Isla alone, with just Paul and James. The snake struck. First, Marco cornered her on a balcony. "I know it's you, Stella," he slurred. "You came back to me." He tried to kiss her. Paul was there in an instant, pulling him away, leading him off to get some air. Then Elena found her. "He's gone. It's time to go. Now." She tried to pull Isla toward a side door. "My father has a car. We will protect you from him." Isla pulled back. "I'm not going anywhere with you." Elena's kind mask vanished. Her face twisted with hatred. "You stupid girl. You are not her. You are ruining everything." She reached into her purse. From the shadows, Matteo's voice cut through the night. "That's far enough, Elena." Matteo stepped onto the balcony. He hadn't left. He had been watching. Paul and James appeared, holding a struggling Marco. And from behind a curtain, Leo walked out, his kind face gone, replaced with a cold, sad emptiness. "You knew," Leo said to Matteo, sounding tired. "I suspected," Matteo said, "but I needed to be sure. You loved her. You both did, but she loved me. She chose me to lead. And you couldn't stand that, could you? So you killed her, to hurt me, to break me. And maybe, in your sick minds, to save her from the life I gave her." Elena was crying now, angry tears. "She was ours first. You took her. You changed her." "And you planted the bomb," Matteo said, his voice cracking with grief. "Your own flesh and blood, my wife." Leo just nodded. "And you brought this copy to torment us, to make us show our hand. Well, you win, Matteo." He looked at Isla, his eyes empty. "She is a good copy, but she will never be your Stella." In that moment, Isla felt a pain she didn't expect. She was just a copy. A tool. The game was over. Matteo had his revenge. What was she now? Matteo looked at Leo, then at Elena. There was no victory in his eyes, only a deep, endless sorrow. "Take them," he said to his men. After they were led away, the party was dead. The guests were gone. Isla stood alone on the balcony in the black dress. She felt hollow. Matteo walked over to her. He didn't speak for a long time. "It's over," Isla said. "You got them, the contract, you said 1 year, but you don't need me anymore. I can go." Matteo turned to her. He looked at her, really looked at her, not as Stella, but as Isla. Her messy hair, her smudged makeup, her eyes full of confused hurt. "Isla," he said, her name soft on his lips. "When I unzipped your wedding dress, when I called you Little Dove," it was for them. The microphones were on. I knew Leo would be listening. I had to make it sound real. He stepped closer. But the words, they didn't feel like a lie, not entirely. He reached out, his hand hovering near her face, then finally cupping her cheek. His touch was warm. "I was saying it to a ghost, but you were standing there. Alive, brave, terrified but standing tall. You are not her, you are Isla. You saved your brother, you faced down monsters. You helped me find peace." His thumb brushed away a tear she didn't know she'd shed. "The contract said 1 year, but I am asking you for more. Not as bait, not as a copy. As you, stay with me, be my wife, for real." Isla looked into his eyes, dark and serious and hopeful. She saw the man who slept in a chair to guard her. The man who carried the world on his shoulders. The man who looked at her now. The Mafia boss had unzipped her wedding dress for a lie. But his heart, in this quiet moment after the storm, was completely, truly open. She leaned into his touch. "Yes," she whispered. And he kissed her, not like a thief claiming a prize, but like a man who had finally found his way home. Life after the trap was quiet, but it was a strange quiet, the kind that comes after a loud crash. The mansion felt different without the shadow of the traitor hanging over it, but it also felt emptier, colder in a way Isla couldn't name. Leo and Alina were gone. Mateo didn't tell Isla what happened to them, and she didn't ask. She saw it in the new, hard set of his jaw when he thought she wasn't looking. She heard it in the absolute silence from the other captains. It was justice in his world, final and brutal. A chapter was closed. But their game of pretend was over, and now they were left with just each other. Two strangers bound by a contract that had just lost its main purpose. The next morning, Isla came down for breakfast. Mateo was already there reading a newspaper. He looked up. "Good morning." His voice was polite, careful. "Good morning," she said, sitting down. The space between them at the long table felt like a mile. They ate in silence. It was awkward. Before, the silence had been part of the act, a tense performance. Now it was just silence. Isla pushed her eggs around her plate. "What happens now?" she finally asked. Mateo put his paper down. "Now you live your life. The contract is still valid. You have 10 months left. You can do whatever you want. Go back to your flower shop if you wish. Paul and James will still go with you, for safety." "For my safety, or to watch me." The words came out sharper than she meant. He met her eyes. "To keep you safe. The Lucianos know about you now, others might. You are connected to me. That makes you a target, Isla. That part is real." She nodded. It made sense, but it felt like a cage with prettier bars. "And you?" "I have an organization to run, one that needs to heal." He stood up. "I will be in my office if you need me." And just like that, they slipped into a new routine. Isla went back to her flower shop 2 days later. It felt wonderful to smell the soil and the blooms, to talk to her old employees. But Paul and James stood by the door, a constant reminder. And customers were nervous or too eager to please her. The normalcy was gone. At home, she and Mateo were like polite roommates. He was often gone late. Sometimes she heard him come in, his footsteps heavy. She would lie in her bed, in her room, and listen. The connecting door between their rooms was never opened. One rainy Thursday, she was in the library, trying to read. She kept staring at the empty spot on the shelf where Stella's photo had been. Mateo had put it away. He walked in looking for a book. He saw where she was looking. He stopped. "She would have liked you," he said suddenly, his back to her. Isla was surprised. "Why do you say that?" "She was kind, and she admired spirit. You have a lot of spirit." He found his book but didn't leave. He turned and leaned against the shelves. "I am not good at this, Isla." "At what?" "At this," he gestured between them. "The contract, the business deal is done, the danger is less. Now it is just a man and a woman in a house. I do not know what you want." Isla closed her book. "I don't know what I want either. I wanted to save David. I did that. Now I have this life. It's not my old life. It's not anything I know." "Do you want to leave?" The question was flat, but his eyes were intense. "When the contract is up, do you want to go?" She hadn't let herself think about it. Leaving meant going back to a small apartment, to constant worry about money, to a life that now seemed very small and far away. It also meant leaving him. The thought made her chest ache. "I don't know," she answered honestly. He nodded, as if he'd expected that. "Then we have time to figure it out." Time passed. A month. They started talking again at night, not through the door but in person. He would knock on her door after a late meeting, still in his suit, and ask if she wanted tea. They would sit in the kitchen at the small table and talk. He told her about his day, the boring parts, the negotiations. She told him about a difficult flower order, about a funny customer. They never touched, but the space between them grew smaller. One evening, he came home with a small, dirt-streaked pot, and it was a single, fragile orchid shoot. "For you," he said, almost shyly. "I saw it. It looked stubborn, like it was fighting to grow. It made me think of you." It was the first gift that was for her, not for Stella. Isla felt her eyes get hot. She took the pot carefully. "Thank you, Mateo." He smiled, a real one that softened his whole face. "You are welcome, Isla." That was the night everything changed. They were in the kitchen, laughing about something Paul had said. Isla reached out without thinking and touched his hand on the table. They both froze. The air got thick and warm. Mateo looked at her hand on his, then up at her face. The question was in his eyes. Isla didn't pull away. She leaned forward just a little. He met her halfway. The kiss was soft, questioning. It wasn't the kiss from the balcony after the trap. That had been about relief, about an ending. This was about a beginning. It was slow and sweet, and it made her whole body hum. When they pulled apart, they were both breathing fast. "Isla," he whispered, his forehead against hers. "Mateo," she whispered back. He stood up, pulling her with him. He didn't lead her to his room or hers. He just held her, right there in the warm light of the kitchen, his arms strong and sure around her. "I don't want to pretend anymore," he said into her hair. "Neither do I," she said. They didn't say, "I love you." It was too soon. But they didn't need to. That night, for the first time, the connecting door between their rooms stayed open. The next weeks were a secret, glowing happiness. In public, they were Don Mateo and his wife. At home, they were just Mateo and Isla. He taught her how to make his favorite pasta. She dragged him to terrible romantic movies, laughing at his confused frowns. He held her at night, his breath warm on her neck, and the nightmares of the past few months began to fade. But Mateo's world was not a safe one. The peace didn't last. The Luciano family, the rivals whose men had tried to grab Isla, saw Mateo's internal conflict as weakness. With Leo gone, they thought his organization was unstable. They started making moves. A shipment was hijacked. 2 of Mateo's collection places were robbed. Mateo became busy again, tense. The shadows under his eyes came back. He tried to hide it from Isla, but she could feel it. One night he came home very late. He had a cut on his cheek. Isla was waiting up. She rushed to him. "What happened?" "Nothing," he said, but he let her clean the cut. "A meeting got loud. It's fine." "It's not fine," she said, her hands trembling. "They're testing you because of what happened with Leo." "Yes," he admitted. "They think I'm distracted." "Are you?" she asked, looking straight into his eyes. He looked back, his gaze open. "Yes, but not in the way they think. I am distracted because I have something real to lose now. Before it was just power, money. Now it is you. That makes me cautious. They see caution as fear." He took her hands. "I will handle this, Isla, but you must be more careful than ever. The Lucianos are not subtle. They are brutes. If they can't hurt me directly." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. If they couldn't hurt Mateo, they would hurt what he loved, her. The next day, Mateo called a meeting with his captains. He told Isla to stay upstairs. She listened from the top of the stairs. His voice, usually so controlled, was a whip of cold anger. "The Lucianos think we are weak," he said. "They think because we cleaned our own house we are broken. We will show them they are wrong, but not with a war in the streets. We are not animals. We will hit their money, every account, every front business. We will squeeze them until they have nothing left to pay their men. Then we will see how strong they are." It was a smart plan, a businessman's plan, not a thug's plan. Isla felt a surge of pride. But the Lucianos were indeed brutes. When they felt the financial squeeze, they reacted with pure violence. 3 days later, Isla was at her flower shop. It was almost closing time. Paul was outside by the car. James was inside, helping her carry a heavy pot. A black SUV with dark windows pulled up fast, right across the street. Not where Mateo's men usually parked. James saw it first. "Isla, get to the back now." It was too late. The doors of the SUV flew open. 4 men with masks jumped out. They had guns. They didn't say a word. They just started shooting. The front window of the flower shop exploded. Glass flew everywhere. Isla screamed. James shoved her hard behind the thick counter. "Stay down!" He pulled his own gun and fired back. Paul was already shooting from outside, but there were too many of them. Isla crouched behind the counter, her heart pounding in her ears. She could hear the shouts, the terrible sound of bullets hitting walls, shattering vases. The smell of gunpowder and broken flowers filled the air. Then a new sound. Sirens, Far away at first, then closer. The Luciano men hadn't expected such a quick police response. Matteo must have contacts with the police too. The men shouted to each other and jumped back into the SUV. It screeched away. The shooting stopped. The sudden silence was louder than the noise. Isla, James's voice was strained. I'm here, she said, her voice a squeak. She stood up slowly. The shop was destroyed. Flowers and glass and water were everywhere. James was clutching his arm. Blood seeped through his fingers. Paul ran in, his face grim. They're gone, James, you're hit. I'm okay, James said through gritted teeth. Just a graze, Isla. She was shaking all over, but she wasn't hurt. Not physically. She looked at the destruction, at the beautiful things she had built, all turned to rubbish. A white rose, perfectly intact, lay in a puddle of water and glass at her feet. Paul was on the phone. Boss, yes, she's safe. James is hit, but he'll live. The shop is gone. He listened, then handed the phone to Isla. He wants to talk to you. She took the phone with a trembling hand. Matteo. His voice was like cracked ice. Isla, look at me. She turned. Outside, a car had pulled up so fast it skidded. Matteo got out. He was still holding his phone to his ear. He was not wearing a jacket. His shirt sleeves were rolled up. He looked wild, his eyes scanning the broken window until they found her. He dropped the phone and ran inside. He didn't care about the glass. He stepped right through it. He grabbed her, pulling her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. He was shaking. He was shaking. Oh, God, Isla, he whispered over and over into her hair. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. She buried her face in his chest, the fear finally crashing over her. She cried. He just held her. Right there, in the middle of the broken shop, surrounded by his men and the arriving police, Matteo Rossi, the feared Don, kissed his wife's hair and had tears in his own eyes. The last wall between them shattered completely. He took her home. He cleaned the tiny cuts on her hands from flying glass himself. He was gentle, his touch so careful. That night, he didn't let her go. He held her all night long. The next morning, his softness was gone, replaced with a cold, terrifying calm. He had a meeting in his office with his captains. Isla brought them coffee. She saw their faces. They were not afraid of the Lucianos. They were afraid of him, of the quiet fury in his eyes. After they left, Isla went in. What are you going to do? He looked out the window. The financial plan was too slow. They have shown they do not respect rules, so now we speak their language. Matteo, no more violence, please. He turned to her. It is not about violence for its own sake. It is about sending a message. One clear message that cannot be misunderstood. If I do not do this, they will try again. And again. They will think they can touch you and live. I cannot allow that. He came to her, took her face in his hands. You are my life, Isla, my real life. I will burn this whole city to the ground to keep you safe. Do you understand? She did. She hated it, but she understood. This was his world, and she was in it now. The message was sent that night. Matteo did not go himself, but his men found the Luciano family's heir, the hot-headed son of the old boss, at his favorite club. They did not kill him. They broke both his legs and left him in the street with a note pinned to his chest. The note said one word: enough. It was a masterstroke. It showed immense control and immense power. Killing him would have started a war. Crippling him and letting him live sent a deeper fear. It showed Matteo could get to anyone, anytime, and do exactly what he wanted. The attack stopped. The financial pressure continued. Within a month, the Luciano family was broken, their business crumbling. Isla saw the change in how people looked at Matteo. The respect was tinged with a new kind of fear, but she also saw the change in how they looked at her. She was no longer just the look-alike wife. She was the woman Don Matteo had gone to the brink for. She was his weakness, and she was his strength. She was untouchable. One evening, 6 months into their real relationship, they were in the garden. Her little orchid was blooming. It was a beautiful, fragile purple flower. Matteo was looking at it with her. It survived, he said. Because someone stubborn helped it, she said, smiling at him. He took her hand. Isla, the 1-year contract. It ends in 2 months. Her heart skipped a beat. I know. I do not want it to end, he said, his voice rough. I want a new contract, a forever contract, with just you and me, no pretending, no business deals. He got down on one knee right there in the dirt, not caring about his expensive pants. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple, beautiful diamond ring. Isla, will you marry me? For real this time. Tears filled her eyes. This was not the Mafia boss claiming his little dove. This was a man offering his whole heart. Yes, she said, laughing and crying. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring on her finger and stood up, kissing her deeply. The past, the fear, the pretending, the danger, it all fell away in that moment. But in Mateo's world, peace was always fragile, and happiness was a bright light that attracted all kinds of moths. 2 weeks before their real wedding, a letter arrived. It had no return address. Mateo opened it at breakfast. His face, which had been so relaxed and happy lately, went pale. He crumpled the letter in his fist. What is it? Isla asked, fear curling in her stomach. Nothing, he said too quickly. He forced a smile. Just business and old debt. He was lying. She could see it, but she didn't push. She had learned that pushing him only made him shut down. That night, she woke up and he wasn't in bed. She found him in his office, staring at the crumpled letter, which he had smoothed out on his desk. A single glass of whiskey was in his hand. He looked haunted. She walked in quietly. He didn't hear her until she was beside him. She looked down at the letter. It was typed. It said, "You have something that belongs to me. You took my dove. I want her back, or I will take everything from you. You have 1 week. You know who I am." At the bottom, drawn in ink, was a small, perfect sketch of a dove in a cage. Isla's blood ran cold. Mateo, who is this? He didn't look at her. His voice was hollow. His name is Silas Vano. He is not a boss. He is not in a family. He is something else, an arms dealer, a ghost, and he was Stella's fiancé before me. The story tumbled out then in broken pieces. Silas Vano had been Stella's first love, a dangerous, charming man. Stella's family had arranged it, but Stella had fallen in love with Mateo, a rising star in her own father's organization. She had broken the engagement. Silas had taken it as the ultimate insult. He had vanished, swearing revenge. He always called her his little dove, Mateo whispered. I never knew. I never thought he would come back. Not after all this time. Not after she was gone. But she is gone, Isla said, confused. Mateo looked at her, his eyes full of a dread she had never seen before. Isla, he doesn't want Stella. He knows she's dead. The letter came to this house, addressed to me. He touched the drawn dove. He's been watching. He knows about you. He knows you look like her. He knows I love you. He's not claiming a ghost. He's claiming you. You are the thing I took. You are his dove now. The room spun. A new enemy, an old, twisted obsession, transferred onto her. He's giving me a week, Mateo said, his hand forming a fist on the desk. A week to give you up, or he will destroy everything I've built, everyone I care about. Isla felt a cold steel settle in her spine. She was not a florist anymore. She was not just a wife. She was Isla Rossi, and she was tired of being a pawn in other people's games. She put her hand over his fist. Then we have 1 week, she said, her voice steady. We beat Leo and Alina together. We beat the Lucianos. We will beat this Silas too. Mateo looked up at her, seeing the fire in her eyes. The fear in his own eyes began to mix with a fierce pride. How? He asked. Isla looked at the drawing of the caged dove. He thinks I'm a bird in a cage. A thing to be taken, so we show him he's wrong. We don't hide. We don't wait for him to make his move. She met Mateo's gaze. We invite him to the wedding. A slow, dangerous smile spread across Mateo's face. It was the smile of a man who had just remembered he was a king, and his queen was standing beside him, ready for war. We set a new trap. Yes, Isla said, but this time we do it together, for real, and we end this for good. The plan was simple and dangerous. They would get married, for real, in a public ceremony. They would invite everyone, all of Mateo's allies, business contacts, even the press. And they would make sure Silas Vano got an invitation. They would draw him out into the open. "He will come," Matteo said, packing his office. "His ego will not let him stay away. He will want to see me. He will want to see her. He will want to show me that he is not afraid." "Good," Isla said. She was sitting in his chair, her mind clear and cold. "Let him come. Let him see that I am not a scared little bird. Let him see that I chose you. That will hurt him more than any bullet." They worked together. Matteo handled the security, turning their wedding into a fortress. Every guard, every waiter would be one of his most trusted men. Isla handled the wedding itself. She chose a dress that was nothing like Stella's. It was simple, sleek, and modern. She chose flowers from her rebuilt shop, bold sunflowers and deep red roses, not the delicate lilies Stella had loved. They sent out the invitations. One special invitation, on thick, expensive paper, was hand-delivered to a shadowy post office box that Matteo's men had linked to Sila's. The week passed slowly. Every ring of the phone, every knock at the door made Isla jump. But Matteo was always there, a steady, calm presence. He taught her how to hold a small pistol, how to fire it. "Just in case," he said. "I will be with you every second, but I need to know you can protect yourself if something goes wrong." The night before the wedding, Isla couldn't sleep. She stood on the balcony, looking at the city lights. Matteo came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her. "Are you scared?" he asked. "Yes," she said honestly. "But not of him. I'm scared of losing this, of losing you. We just found each other." He turned her to face him. "You will not lose me, and I will not lose you. Tomorrow we get married, and then we end this. We start our life, a real life." The wedding day was bright and sunny. The ceremony was in a beautiful, old hotel ballroom. It was full of people. Isla walked down the aisle alone. She didn't need anyone to give her away. She was giving herself freely. Matteo waited at the end of the aisle. He wore a black tuxedo, but he looked different than he had at their first wedding. His eyes were soft. He only saw her. They said their vows, their own words, not the old ones from a book. Matteo's voice was thick with emotion. "Isla, you are my surprise, my hope, my second chance at life. I promise to protect you, to respect you, and to love you every day for the rest of my life." Isla smiled through happy tears. "Matteo, you are my strength, my safe place. You saw me when I was just a tool, and you chose to see the real person. I promise to stand by you, to challenge you, and to love you with my whole heart." They exchanged rings, simple gold bands. Then the priest said, "You may kiss your bride." Matteo kissed her, and the room erupted in applause. It was real. It was done. Now they had to wait. The reception was a grand party. Music played. People danced. Isla and Matteo moved through the crowd, smiling, accepting congratulations. But their eyes were always moving, searching the faces in the room. An hour passed. Then two. Isla started to think maybe he hadn't come. Maybe he was a coward after all. Then she felt it, a change in the air, a cold spot in the warm room. She looked toward the main doors. A man stood there. He was not tall, but he had a presence that made people near him edge away. He had silver hair, neatly combed, and wore a perfectly tailored gray suit. He was not young, but he was handsome in a sharp, cruel way. His eyes, a pale, icy blue, scanned the room and landed right on her. Silas Vano. He didn't try to hide. He walked straight toward them, a small, polite smile on his face. Matteo's hand tightened on Isla's waist. Paul and James moved closer. Silas stopped in front of them. He ignored Matteo completely. He looked only at Isla. His gaze was like being touched by cold fingers. "The dove," he said, his voice smooth and quiet. "You look even more like her in person. But you are not her, are you? She had fire in her eyes. You just look determined." Isla lifted her chin. "My name is Isla Rossi. I am nothing like Stella." "Ah, but you are," Silas said, finally glancing at Matteo. "You are the thing he took, the prize. I am here to collect what is mine." Matteo stepped slightly in front of Isla. "Nothing here is yours, Silas. You lost Stella a long time ago. You lost before you even began." Silas's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I do not lose, Matteo. I bide my time. You took my future, so I will take yours." He looked back at Isla. "You think this is love? This is a cage, a golden cage, but a cage all the same. Come with me. I can offer you freedom, a life where you are not a replacement, but the first and only. Isla felt a flash of anger. She stepped out from behind Mateo. You don't know anything about me or my life. I am not a thing to be collected. I am not your revenge. I chose him. I love him. And you are just a sad, lonely man from the past who can't let go. For a second, the polite mask on Silas's face cracked. Rage flickered in his pale eyes. You will regret that, little dove. That's enough, Mateo said, his voice low and deadly. You have had your say. Now leave. My men will see you out. Silas laughed, a dry, hollow sound. Oh, I will leave, but this is not over. I gave you a week. You did not give me what I asked for. Now you will learn the price. He looked around the crowded room, then back at Mateo. Check your phone, Mateo. You might have missed a call. He gave a slight bow to Isla, then turned and walked calmly out of the ballroom. No one stopped him. Mateo had given orders. Let him leave. The fight was not for here, not with all these innocent people. As soon as Silas was gone, Mateo pulled out his phone. He had 3 missed calls from a blocked number. He dialed his head of security, Mark. Report, now. Mark's voice was tense over the phone. Boss, we have a problem. 3 of our warehouses were hit at the same time. Not robbed, set on fire. The one on the South Dock had the special shipment in it. Mateo's face went grim. The special shipment was a huge cache of weapons, bought for a lot of money. Casualties. None. It was like they knew the guard schedules. They hit when the men were changing shifts. This was inside information, boss. Silas had not come to the wedding to talk. He had come to distract Mateo while his men struck. He had come to show his power. Mateo ended the call. He looked at Isla. He hit our warehouses. He's making his move. The party was over. The guests were sent home with apologies. The wedding dress was put away. Isla changed into dark pants and a sweater. She went to Mateo's office, where he was already with his captains, their faces hard. He is hitting our money, our supplies, one captain said. He is trying to cripple us before a real fight. He has someone on the inside, Mateo said. Again, someone is giving him information. He looked around the room at the men he trusted. It was a terrible feeling, not knowing who to trust. Isla spoke from the doorway. It's not one of them. Everyone turned to look at her. How do you know, Isla? Mateo asked. Because his plan doesn't need a mole inside your inner circle, she said, walking into the room. She had been thinking hard. He knew the guard schedules at the warehouses. That's low-level information. The kind a regular soldier would know, not a captain. She looked at Mateo. He's not trying to take over your organization. He doesn't want your territory. He wants to hurt you, personally, to take what you love. He's not a businessman. He's a terrorist. And he's focused on one thing, me. She was right. Silas's actions were not the actions of a rival seeking power. They were the actions of a man driven by a personal, bitter hatred. Then we use that, Mateo said, a new plan forming in his eyes. We use his obsession. He wants you. We give him a chance to take you. Ilo understood. A new trap. Mateo nodded. But this time you will not be there. We use a decoy. We leak information that you are going to be at a certain place, alone, vulnerable. He will come himself. He will want to be the one to take you. And when he does, we will be waiting. It was risky, but it was the only way to draw out a ghost. They set the trap for 2 nights later. The word was spread carefully. Isla Rossi, shaken by the attacks, was going to visit Stella's old family chapel in the countryside to pray for peace. She would only have 2 guards. It was a perfect, isolated target. Of course, Isla would not be there. A brave woman from Mateo's organization, who had a similar build and hair, would wear a hood and play the part. Mateo and his best men would be hidden everywhere, in the woods, inside the chapel, nearby. The night was cold and foggy. Isla waited at home, in Mateo's office, her stomach in knots. She watched the security feeds from cameras near the chapel on a computer screen. She saw the decoy arrive, shrouded in a dark cloak with 2 guards. They went into the small, stone chapel. The lights inside came on. Then they waited. An hour passed. Nothing. Isla was about to think it had failed when she saw movement on the edge of the screen. Figures, dressed in black, moving silently through the trees. There were at least 10 of them. They surrounded the chapel. A man walked right up to the chapel door. Even in the grainy night vision camera, Isla recognized the silver hair and the confident walk. Silas Vano. He had come himself, just as they'd hoped. He didn't storm in. He simply opened the chapel door and walked inside. Isla held her breath. This was the moment. Gunshots erupted from inside the chapel. Not many, just a few sharp cracks in the silent night. Then nothing. The radio on the desk crackled to life. It was Mateo's voice, calm. Target secured. The perimeter team has the others. It's over. Isla slumped in the chair, a sob of relief catching in her throat. They brought Silas back to the city, to a quiet, secure building Mateo owned. Mateo came home first to get Isla. His clothes were dirty, and he had a smear of blood on his cheek that wasn't his. He looked tired, but the deep worry was gone from his eyes. "He is downstairs," Mateo said. "He wants to see you, to talk to you. I said no, but I think you should decide." Isla was surprised. Why? Because he is not a threat anymore. His men are captured. His operation here is finished. He is a broken man, and I think you should look him in the eye and see that for yourself, so you are never afraid of him again. Isla thought about it. She was not the scared florist anymore. She was Isla Rossi. "Okay," she said. "I'll see him." They went to the secure building. Silas was in a plain room, sitting on a metal chair. His hands were bound. His perfect suit was rumpled. He looked older, smaller, but his pale eyes were still sharp. He looked up when Isla walked in with Mateo. A bitter smile touched his lips. "The dove comes to see the hunter in his cage. How poetic." "I'm not a dove," Isla said, her voice calm. "And you were never a hunter. You were just a man who couldn't move on." Silas studied her face. "You really do love him, don't you?" "With everything I am." He nodded slowly, as if finally accepting a hard truth. "Stella said the same thing about him. I didn't believe her. I thought she was confused. I thought if I removed him, she would see it was me she loved." He let out a long, tired breath. "I was wrong then, and I am wrong now. The look in your eyes. It is the same look she had when she spoke of him. I have been fighting a ghost, and I have lost to a memory." He looked at Mateo. "You are a lucky man, twice." Mateo didn't answer. He just watched him. "What will you do with me?" Silas asked. Mateo glanced at Isla, letting her answer. Isla thought for a moment. Killing him would be easy, but it would not bring peace. It would just be another death, another ghost between them. "You will leave," she said. "You will leave this country and never come back. You will never contact us or anyone connected to us ever again. If you do, there will be no second chance." Silas raised an eyebrow. "That is all. You are letting me go." "You are not a threat to me," Isla said. "Not anymore. I see that now. You are just a sad story, and I am done with sad stories. I am starting a new one." She took Mateo's hand. "Let's go home." They left Silas in the room. Mateo's men would put him on a plane with nothing to a faraway place. He was finished. Outside, the first light of dawn was breaking. The city was quiet. Mateo drove them home himself. In their kitchen, he made tea. They sat at the small table, just like they had when they first started talking. "It's really over," Isla said, the words feeling true for the first time. "It's over," Mateo agreed. "No more ghosts, no more traps, just us." He reached across the table and took her left hand, rubbing his thumb over her new wedding ring. "I love you, Isla Rossi." Isla smiled, her heart full and light. "I love you, Mateo Rossi." They had started with a contract, a lie, and a dangerous game. They had survived betrayal, violence, and obsession. But in the end, they had found something real in the middle of all the pretend. They had found each other. And as the sun rose over the city, they knew their story was just beginning. A real story, theirs. Thank you for watching. Did Isla and Mateo's story make your heart race? Let us know where you're watching from in the comments. For more stories of dangerous love and epic twists, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. Your next obsession is waiting.